Hey everybody, it's Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner and creator of FSW, the Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. Joe, how's it going today?
Oh, words cannot express how I'm doing today.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We will be talking to you next week.
Thank you and good night.
How has the last week been for you looking at this upcoming Survival of the Fittest? It's on Friday the 24th at 7 p.m. You can get your tickets for Diversion Amusement, or you can watch it on Fight TV. How has that been for you the last week in terms of making sure everything's starting to fall into place, especially with the fact that the venue now has new people that you're dealing with that you didn't have to deal with before? Has it been a tougher process this time using the venue? And do you run into some of the same problems when you're running places like Sam's Town?
Always, because everybody's looking to squeeze that extra dollar out of you, and you're dealing with management, and now new management wants to come in and press the ownership, so they got to negotiate a better deal than, say, the one that we had, which we liked better. So now there's, a little bit more out of pocket money and whatever, not a major big deal, but, from what I'm seeing is, not a lot, not that they have a huge following, but it doesn't seem like there's been any promotion from the venue putting out there that there's a wrestling show. One of our fans hit me up and was like, "Oh, I know you don't work there, but I was just curious to know what the menu is." And we have the menu and we know exactly what it is, but nobody there is even answering a phone. So it's like, how many phone calls are missed from people who aren't all over FSW's Facebook and just heard that there's a show and they're contacting the place of origin and there's nobody responding. So,
Yeah.
it's all these little things. And it's like, whether it was Sam's Town or whether it's Diversion, everybody wants to make sure that we do everything we have to do. But when there's an issue, kind of like the air conditioning last time, that kind of gets swept away. Oh, well, we'll take care of it next time. Well, how'd you take care of it this time? You
Right.
did cost me money. So don't complain about the food and beverage guarantee on the second night when we did as well as we did on the first night. Now, did 100 people not show up the second night because of that? No, probably not. But, if 30 people didn't show up and all bought general admission tickets, that's another $700-800. We didn't really make money on the second night. Well, that would have been a profit right there.
Right.
And nobody was concerned with, hey, when we needed the waters, and it was like, well, we can't keep giving you waters. Well, we didn't really want your waters. We had waters, but people are going through them because it's 120 degrees.
Yeah.
So it's just finding the happy medium because, you're appreciative of the place. And it's the same thing at Sam's Town where they would keep raising the rate a little bit. Oh, Joe just brought us Ring of Honor. Oh, we got to raise the rate because, upper management says, well, Ring of Honor's paying this. Why isn't FSW? Well, FSW is the local company who helped bring you Ring of Honor to get you all that money.
Yeah.
And the same thing came up with Impact. Like now, Impact will be back there and we won't, because they want to treat everybody as if they're this national wrestling company, and they'd rather keep the room empty than make $3,000 because they need to make at least $9,000. So they would just rather leave it empty and make $0, which I've never understood that concept. If you're an event arena.
Yeah.
It is to have as many events as possible, you would think. That's how your workers get paid. That's how the bartenders get gigs, and I just don't understand it sometimes. And it's extremely frustrating. I know what GCW had to pay, and it was like, they drew really well, but man, that was a big hit because they had to pay a lot of money, to be at Meet Las Vegas. And we wish we had a bigger facility, and a more wide open facility for them, because, you know, they used it before when they had an empty arena show, and, you know, we discounted it heavily, and we did the FSW GCW show, and it was fine because I couldn't do that show at Diversion because the type of things that they do, deathmatch stuff and the stuff with Nick Gage and Cody and Funny Bone, that probably wouldn't play very well there, and we probably wouldn't be for sure invited back. So you have to take that into consideration. You know, my kids always like, oh, you know, we need to do that at Diversion, and it's like, we can't go outside in the parking lot like we can in our back alley and break a light tube over somebody's head. It's tough enough to get places to okay wrestling.
Right.
You know, I was having a conversation because, you know, through the house seats, I got tickets. So I went to go see some show at the Rio. You know, took the wife. We went to see the show. Wow. And it had like Circus de Soleil type acts and juggling and dancing and all stuff. And it was fine. It was cool. You know, tickets are like $50. You know, I got them on house seats. They were free. It was going to be a Thursday night. On a Thursday night, they were lucky to have 80 people there. Now, if I got my house seats for free, are you going to tell me that 20 people? Same thing when I went to see Illuminate. I'm like, wow, it's going to be pretty crowded. There's a long line. It was like, wow, they just don't let anybody in. But I saw the list, and the list was about 60 long of people who got tickets for that. And there might have been no more than 100 people in there. So you're paying these people $800, $1,000 a week. You got 40, 50 employees. You know, how is it not financially a benefit to bring an FSW show into one of these places where we say, hey, just give us the room and we'll just take the door, and you take all the food and beverage, and we know for a fact we're going to have 300-400 people in there. You know, hopefully buying food, drinking, and all the other stuff. You're not paying anything. You're just paying, you know, a skeleton crew to run the main lighting and sound and all the other stuff. And I know what the costs are because, you know, we had to deal with that at Sam's Town, and we have to deal with that here at Diversion with the lighting guy and the sound guy. And, you know, it's a 4-hour minimum, and they get paid X amount of dollars. And, you know, it all adds up, but we don't have that many people there. So it isn't like, wow, where you're paying us on top of everything, and then you're giving away the room for free because you're hoping 60 people are going to buy some liquor. You know what I mean? But it's almost impossible to get a meeting with most of these casinos. You know, or you can go rent a ballroom for $7,000 that has no staging, no lighting, no trussing, no nothing. You know,
right.
We tried to go over to the East Side Cannery at one time because Sam's Town, I think, was booked or whatever. And it was like, the price was like 5 times the price, and it was in a ballroom. Like, why would I go there instead of just doing it inside Sam's Town? And use a different date. It was like, it's just, you know, financially impossible because, you know, that's an important part of things when you're trying to bring in name guys, because that seems to be, you know, the Mecca shows draw better than most of our other shows. Why? Because there's national talent. Well, national talent works for a hell of a lot more than the local talent.
Yeah.
Fortunate that the guys like, you know, Chris Bay, Brian Cage, Jeff Cobb, Willie Mack, you know, all those guys live here. TJ Higgins, you know, D-Lo, Kenny King. So when you do have to pay pricing for these national guys, you don't have to worry about any flights. So, you know, I could bring in a guy that costs a couple $100, but I got to fly him in. It costs $500 or $600. Well, I can get a guy who's probably more well-known if he lives in town for a similar price. And now you got to juggle like, okay, well, is this guy worth this? And is this guy, he's only $500. He's a good name. Oh yeah, but the flight's $480 and it's $1,000. So now is it worth it when I can probably get somebody else for maybe $750. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, and it's easier to get sponsors that way. You know, we're talking
Sure.
with some of our sponsors who are interested. And yeah, we have some locally. Our guy Pat at the with the racing, H-Town Racing, you know, big fan of Sandra Moon, so he's kind of sponsored a few of the stuff. But then we've also gotten help with some of the up and coming young talent from out of state that we would never fly in, the Percy Drews and the Travis Titans, who has been working on AEW Dark and things like that. So it's like we're trying to continuously upgrade the talent on shows, because again, you know, a lot of these guys work all these shows in town, and you know, it wasn't that big a deal. You know, there might have been one other show in town with Big Valley, but now you got like 4 or 5 other companies trying to run. So it's like, well, okay, if a certain guy's working here and he's working there and then he's working over there and he's working 5 times this month, that's great. But if they're all in Vegas, that's not really, you know, helping our product when you can see somebody everywhere and we're the ones who charge the highest price. So why would I pay, you know, $40 or $50 at a casino show, other than the fact that you love FSW? But it's like when you have an option to go in some of these places, watch it for free, and you get to see, you know, or $20, and you can see Remy Marcel, and you see Funny Bone, and you see Sky High, and you see Sandra Moon. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to continually make things exciting, and, you know, use guys like Hammerstone and Graves and Class and Eli Everfly and Gatson and Quest, and a lot of these guys who are exclusive by choice because, you know, they work for FSW and they're out of state, so they have their other bookings, so they're content with what they're doing here, you know. And again, you know, it is what it is, and everybody, you know, I've never stopped anybody from working there, but sometimes it makes it a little more difficult for us. Or when I see, you know, another company take what we're doing and setting up, and then all of a sudden at their show, they're working the same match. You know, I don't know. Maybe it's me, but I think that's on the talent to say, hey, you know what, we're doing this over here, let's keep it over there.
Do you think that's a unique problem to Las Vegas, being that the city is so big but yet so small, whereas in Southern California you could run San Diego or Orange County and not technically be intruding onto the LA aspect because of the distance? Is that something that, you know, people don't even think, especially the performers, don't think about, because of the fact that it's, you know, so localized here, that you don't want to burn out your storyline at the, you know, at this company versus your storyline at that company?
Well, it's more because Vegas is so much smaller, you know, as you said, you know, you got, even in LA County, Orange County, whatever it is, I don't know, but there's, you know, you could go, you know, 100 miles and have another show. In Vegas, everything's within a 5-mile radius. But I think more importantly is, if you ask a lot of those guys in Gatson and Everfly and Toa and most of those guys, when they work shows in SoCal, NorCal, whatever, they're just having a match. You know, most of these companies aren't trying to do storytelling to where we're trying to set up feuds and we're putting things together to set up for down the line, and they're kind of working together. You know, in most cases, if you look at the matches, you know, again, Phoenix Championship Wrestling, for example, they use a bunch of our guys and they have matches, and Dom books the matches that he wants to see on his show. He's not really worried or concerned of what we're doing. Like Remy wrestled Class at their show. Right. And I guess he's wrestling Sharp on the next show. But to that fan base, there's no like, oh man, that's the feud in FSW. I can't believe. But when you have similar fans, now it's a different story. You know,
Right.
when you go to any of the places around town, you know, a lot of our regulars are there. So, you know, they're giving away certain things. You know, I remember a few years ago when they ran in the muffler shop, you know, and we had set up a whole feud with Mike Delight and Funny Bone where Mike Delight didn't get pinned, and we were setting it up for a steel cage match. And then basically a week and a half or 2 weeks before, the guy Funny Bone was supposed to wrestle couldn't make it, so Mike Delight took the payday, and he got pinned in like a minute and a half. And it was, we just set up things for like 3 or 4 months to keep you strong, and you just went over there and jobbed out like a jamook in a minute and a half.
Yeah.
How does that help me? You know, if Hammerstone wrestled John Morrison at a show down the street in a steel cage, who would care that I had John Morrison and Hammerstone in a steel cage 3 weeks later?
Yeah. You know, along the lines, talking about the show coming up here, Survival of the Fittest. Again, it's Friday the 24th at 7 p.m. When you look at the talent that you have on this show and coming into it, is it obviously it's a business decision to do a bigger arena. We've also talked in the past about, you know, having the themed, you know, Survival of the Fittest or the Mecca, etc. Is it partially outside the business aspect of it? Is it partially something to kind of reward some of the guys so that they do, you know, get to perform in front of a larger audience, and they're not stuck, you know, with just continuously wrestling at the FSW arena? Is this something that, you know, if guys get that shot, it's really kind of that appreciation, and versus, you know, we have to put you on, you know, is that mentality something you're trying to get across to the guys, that to be on a show like this means something?
Well, that's how it always was when we did the casino shows. You know, the pay was a bit better. We had a bigger crowd. We invested more money into the budget. Now, on these shows, now that we just started doing a Diversion, for example, you know, all the guys who come in and do the shows at the FSW arena understand that funds are extremely limited. Now, it doesn't mean because we're doing a show at Diversion that we're going to make so much more money. But the idea is it's a bigger budget. Now, everybody's going to get a few more dollars than they usually get. Now, the thing is, I'm not that concerned with one show, how much of a profit we make on it. We need to do bigger shows. And sometimes bigger shows cost money. And sometimes in the short run, they don't make money per se. You know, we did the Mecca not with the expectation that, hey, we're doing this big show, but the show costs $12,000 compared to a regular show, you know, and that's far more than a normal show would cost that we would do, because we had to fly in 7 guys, and we used Matt Hardy and Bubba Dudley and John Morrison and Shane Strickland and all these guys, or the super indie guys, you know, like Brian Cage and Sammy Callahan, that, you know, they aren't working for $100. So, you know, but you have to go out there and you got to risk that if you want to grow. You know, a lot of companies don't want to risk it, and that's why they're where they are today. You know, we go out there and win, lose, or draw. You know, we're not going under if we lose money on this show.
Right.
The idea is to set up this show for another show, because we know specifically there are fans who don't want to come to the FSW arena. You know, they want to go for the event. They want to go for a night out with the family. They get to eat, they get to drink, they get to watch wrestling for 3 hours. It's a lot different than inside the FSW arena. You got to be, a dedicated fan who sometimes in the summer it's pretty hot in there. And, we do pretty well because we have a lot of dedicated fans, but we also have some that just want to come to the big shows. And sometimes the ones that come to the regular shows, now all of a sudden they bring 4, 5, 6 other people because it's a bigger show and it's an event, and we can draw better down the line. We've had that success at Sam's Town, but now it's trying to rebuild that, you know. And the thing is, it was a lot easier for people who didn't know who FSW was to know that we had a show at Sam's Town, because you would drive by Sam's Town, you'd see it on the giant marquee, and you'd see names like Kenny King and Matt Hardy and whoever else that we happen to bring in. While now it's strictly social media promotion through our own fan base and hoping some sponsored ads find some new people, because, how many people already know about FSW that are on Facebook? Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of them. So it's like, how do we find these other people? Well, maybe it's time to go back to, putting up a billboard for a week, in a decent area of foot traffic, not foot traffic, but, regular traffic. I remember the anniversary show. I thought it was a joke. I thought he photoshopped it. And Ice Williams made a billboard of himself for the anniversary show, and he put it right in front of the Thomas and Mack, which is, if you left the airport, you had to see that billboard. And the first time I saw it, I kind of laughed. I'm like, that's funny, but like, I thought it was fake. But he did it. He only did it for one day because it's costly. But he did it to promote himself. And FSW, we need to promote ourselves, like we said, especially because of the pandemic. There's a lot of new people that have moved to town. A lot of people got the hell out of California and to Vegas. We've gotten some new students, and they were all pretty much moved here from California.
Wow. And that's a very good point in terms of finding that audience in a pool that you've already been swimming in. So you already have, all these fans who know FSW. How do you plan for something like that? How much budgeting goes into the idea for advertising for the specific point of finding those, potential new fans who don't know about the product?
Well, you just got to get yourself out there. Like right now, most people don't spend money on television ads anymore because everybody watches streaming services, and building up your own fan base is how we do it. We have our own fan base. So what do? We have a fan page. We have friends. We go on Twitter and we spread the word, and we hope the wrestlers spread the word. I honestly think that they should spread the word a lot more than they do, but it's a much more difficult process than it was before. We just throw a commercial on Monday Night Raw. People were watching it live. Oh shit, there's wrestling. Oh, cool. All right. The Godfather is going to be there. Jimmy Snuka is going to be there. Kevin Nash is going to be there. Now I remember toward the end when we stopped doing it, a lot of people it was Friday night, SmackDown. A lot of people went out Friday night. All of a sudden on Sunday or Monday, they would, I'd get a call from the few people that might be interested in training. But if they wanted to come to the show, it was done with because they didn't see the commercial till Sunday or Monday. And we show Saturday night. So, it's cheaper in a way because you're able to know your fan base, your emails, through PayPal. Everybody who PayPals you has an email address.
Right.
But, I would always send the emails. I finally got smart enough to actually, make basically a database with all the emails because, it would take forever to go through each name and and send out an email. Like just writing the emails down to 2.5 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's remarkable too. And anyone who's never gone to a live FSW show, they don't know the feeling of having Joe DeFalco at the front table with the list. And,
A list.
and remarkable how you can, someone could say the name and you could go, oh yeah, I know that name, I've seen that name, and maybe you've never met the person, but that name rings a bell for you. Is that part of one of the things that you enjoy, is getting to, see some of the fans who might be coming for the first time, or are, not necessarily the regulars, but maybe, people who catch one show a month. Is that something you enjoy? Is that interaction with knowing the fans and kind of also, in a sense, getting a pulse and a feel about what people are talking about as they enter the arena, to just kind of pick up on where the excitement and the hype is through conversation?
I try to make a connection pretty much with everybody who comes through the door. There's so many things that people can do here in Vegas that when we have a show and they're going to throw down their hard-earned money and bring their families and things like that, that whether it's before the show, after the show, if they're around, I always try to conversate with people, see what they think. Hey, what did they like? We make the post. Hey, what was your favorite match? Hey, who would you like to see back in FSW? Because, bottom line is the paying fans, they're the ones who need to keep coming back. If you come to one show and never come again, we're going to run out of fans. So
Right.
We have to make sure we're doing stuff that makes, the Chief and George and his crew and Brandy and all our regulars who come, who try to bring a few friends here and there. Hey, check this out. This is what I like to do, And some people may be, they know the WWE a lot. They may know some people. They don't know any of our guys. They don't know Impact. They don't know Ring of Honor. But they come in, it's like, it's a very interactive experience. You're 10 feet away from the ring. The furthest you are is 25 feet away with the bleachers, and it's like these guys like Cross and Lacey and Chris Bay and Sepha, the show would end and they would hang out with the fans, take pictures, sign anything, whatever, and they wouldn't charge anybody. There was a time where, a Chris Bay or a Cross, were doing national things like Bay is now. And they're not, stuck up to where like, oh, well, if you want a picture now, it's $20, $10, they're very respectful and understand that the fans help them, get where they are,
Right.
Even when we have 60, 70 people in there, I was talking with one of our sponsor guys, and I knew one of them because the guy, Brian, he trained with us as a referee, but he trained for like a month, 6 or 7 years ago, but he was on my Facebook friends list. Might have saw some stuff, might have conversated once or twice, probably not really much, but I had a meeting with them this week, and there was another guy who I had never met before, who was one of their partners. And it was like, oh yeah, I was at the first Natural Born Killer show. That was the first one I went to. And after the show, I went up to Cross and I had my little shit tape recorder and asked him if it was okay to ask him some questions for a little, thing that he did. And Cross was as accommodating as anybody. And this was for a guy who basically had nothing going on. And FSW has stayed on his radar ever since. And now because of the way our people treat other people, now when it's time to come about a sponsorship or how they feel, hey, well, you know what, FSW guys, they're really cordial, they're nice to you, they don't treat you like a mark, because we're all marks. We love wrestling. That's the reason why we do it. You know what I mean? And, even when I got to meet a Matt Hardy for the first time, it's like, oh shit, I'm in a Thai restaurant hanging out with Matt Hardy, bullshitting about bringing him in for more shows. Like, how cool is that? And that's the living the dream part of,
Yeah.
you know, you get to do the shows, you get to meet all these people, you get to watch, you know, when a guy like Shane Strickland, now Isaiah Swerve Scott, who hadn't worked for us that many times, but after he got signed, you know, he sent me a thank you, because back in the day when we were doing the shows in Phoenix, he was kind of one of those rising guys. He was underneath the Ricochets and the Swans who had gotten the love, but he really wasn't working out on the West Coast and stuff. And we were one of the first guys to utilize him. And those guys will always remember that. And it's kind of like later on when he did get bigger independently and we used him at the Mecca shows, you know, we always got a little better deal from him because, you know, he appreciated what I did for him years before that, when he didn't really have that much of a name in the indie scene. You know, when you get signed, or a guy like Sefa thanking me and, you know, showing appreciation for everything that we've done, you know, it's easy for a guy like Sefa to say, hey, you know, Rikishi's my dad, he trained me, but he comes out and says, and he did train with them for a little bit, but the majority of his training and the majority of all his early matches were through FSW. And he has shown that appreciation from day one, you know, and we've been lucky, guys like that. Guys like Cross and Bay and Sefa and Lacey, you know, those are, you know, our four, you know, big guns who got signed out of, you know, FSW's training, you know, and whether the Vandergriffs and the Damian Drakes or the Jay Vidals move on, you know, the common denominator about those guys is mainly they're very appreciative of how we've helped them, whether they didn't have money for dues or getting them on shows or saying, yeah, cool, go work that other show, you know, we'll fit you in, we'll work it out. Because, you know, again, we're trying to make these guys happy and also trying to do the business the right way. And, you know, it's important for these guys to get on the shows. Like, I never expected Jay Vidal to return, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, it was like John Cena left for 3 years, came back. It was like, here's a guy who wrestled, you know, some matches with the bad bitches and stuff, you know, moved away because of the pandemic, came back, and all of a sudden the crowd was like, oh my God. And now he's so improved tenfold. You know, he was good, but now he's really, really good. But now he also portrays his character really, really well. He was kind of like in between, you know, he did like this EDC kid gimmick when he first came that I rib him about Jaden Rhythm or something like that. And I'm like, man, that was the shits. But you got to find yourself. And that's what happens with these younger guys. Like, they think they found themselves until they realize a year later, well, maybe Joe isn't that asshole that we thought he was. Maybe I wasn't ready yet, because they see things, you know, Suavecitos, for example, with Quest there, you know, Quest is going to tell them like it is, you know, when they're slacking off, when they're doing something stupid. You know, here's a guy who's worked hard and now he's part of New Japan in America, you know. If you're not gonna listen to that guy, then you're not gonna listen to anybody, and you're destined to fail.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Coming into the show on Friday, what can fans expect? What kind of matches do you already have announced? And you know, what concepts? What are you still looking for in terms of matches as well? Are there things that you haven't fully put in place yet?
Everything is set. That's why it's been a little weird, because it was like I haven't really had a focus on it. I haven't sat down yet, but I'm going to, you know, later today and tomorrow, and kind of work out the ideas, especially in like the elimination matches. Because two of those, and that's the MK Army, which is going to be Juicy Tito. Not Tito. Tito can't make it. So it's Juicy Toa, and we got another member of the Army who's making his way in, Sam Adonis. And Sam Adonis has done some great things of late. He's part of a major faction in AAA. He's in NWA. He had, as the kids like to say, a banger with Psycho Clown at the FSW Arena. I I can't remember the date. Psycho de Mayo. Oh yeah, May 5th. And you know, so that wasn't that long ago. So that's a big match against Hammerstone Graves and their boys returning. Our guy Gallo,
Yeah.
stepping up to help out his friends. So it'll be a 3-on-3 elimination style match. Then we got the team known as the Ultimate Finessers, led by Chris Bay, along with the returning Shogun SOS. He's returned with a new name, Hero Lou and Nino Black. You know, now those are three of our, you know, young guns looking to really make a name for themselves, taking on Lights Camera Faction, who've taken on a whole new dynamic since Ice Williams joined the fold, and he hasn't lost since. So that's a 4-on-4 elimination match, you know. And then we have another multi-tag match because it's an intergender one that it's not a elimination style. It is the battle of the sexes, men versus women, led by Team DeShade, who has been going back and forth since the anniversary show, thereby the storytelling of DeShade and Strella. And DeShade's recruited some guys. Jordan Oasis, who's become a regular at FSW, Jordan Cruz, who's trying to make a name for himself, and also Thomas Day. And they're going to take on Strella's team, which of course includes Maserati, but she's brought in two of her buddies, one from OVW that she's good friends with, Jocelyn Navarro, and another one who was very impressive at the women's show, Viva Van. So we got that. Then, of course, the last man standing match, Jay Vidal against Gregory Sharp. You know, that feud has been passionate and hard hitting, you know, since Gregory Sharp went crazy after Remy Marcel pile drive him on the wood boards of the ring, beyond my disbelief as I'm watching Remy, like, what the fuck are you doing? And Sandra Moon, she's going to defend against Ray Lynn, who's, you know, world renowned, you know, wrestled all over the United States, part of, you know, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, NWA. She's done a bunch of different stuff, you know, AEW Dark. Yep. So we're looking forward to that. Remy Marcel, he's obviously got the toughest challenge of his Nevada State Championship, not because of one guy, but because it's three guys. And the three guys are Eli Everfly, Adrian Quest, and a newcomer, Keita Murray, who's outstanding, who's a guy that we've been trying to get for a long time, and we finally, you know, were able to get him. So, you know, that alone is the price of admission, and I'm pretty sure there's another match in there that we kind of missed. We're going to have a pre-show match with some of the younger kids like Davion and Little Bodie, and even Brett the Thread and Greatness and Tenacious. They'll be involved in the pre-show match. So
awesome. I mean, it really sounds like it's a very well thought out card. It also seems like the fans are going to get what they, you know, kind of what they've wanted to see, and that is things like Lights Camera Faction potentially getting their asses handed to them.
I'll be the first guy in that rooting committee.
When you look at the long play for a feud like Gregory Sharp and Jay Vidal, did you ever see that as becoming something that would go on for a while, or did you see it as, you know, once that first match kind of happened, that would be the end of it? Basically, did those two step up their game so much that you're like, you know what, we need to keep this going because it's got everything it needs in it?
Well, it's all been based off what's happened with Gregory Sharp. You know, after Hyperstreak lost to Remy Marcel, you know, the shit hit the fan. We didn't see Hyperstreak for a long time, and then he came back and laid out Jay Vidal, and we found out why. You know, Gregory Sharp has been with FSW for at least 9 or 10 years, okay? And he's a guy who's traveled all over the world and gotten so much experience. And even as Hyperstreak, he's a guy who was well-liked, but obviously not loved the way Jay Vidal was. And
Right.
Gregory Sharp felt he's given everything he could to Las Vegas and FSW. And not only is he angry with the fans, he's angry with me. I told the story about running into him at Smith's, and he walked right past me, said, "Oh, yeah, I've been busy," when I asked him where he'd been during the pandemic. And I was like, what the fuck? And he's had this chip on his shoulder. And unfortunately, Jay Vidal's the guy who's been taking the brunt of it. But
Yeah.
Jay out of nowhere came up with the win at the anniversary show, but he may have won the battle, but he didn't win the war because Sharp laid him out again, and then he laid him out again. So it's been a few different times, and it's kind of gone back and forth since. So we figured with the, title of Survival of the Fittest, why not a last man standing match? One other I personally wanted to see, because as angry as Gregory Sharp is, a Iron Man match I think would be awesome between those two. But I think in the way that their anger towards each other was going, it probably would break down pretty early. So doing the last man standing match, seems to be, what would be the best fit. Oh yeah, and there was the tag gauntlet match with the Suavecitos, Sky High, Heart and Soulless, and whoever out of that round robin threesome comes out on top, they get to face the Death Proof, who rightfully so, they're the tag champs. So and we may have some surprises. We're still working on some surprises.
I was just going to ask that. One of the things that I think the fans love most is the fact that anyone could show up at any time. Did you ever, when you were thinking about, as FSW was growing, did you realize that the effectiveness of having surprise recognizable people, whether it be nationally recognizable or locally recognizable, that those surprises kind of pay off, where the fans then, who might not be the regulars, but came to Diversion because they happened to see a billboard or an ad or something like that, or through social media, and they show up, and now all of a sudden, like, whoa, that person just showed up. Is that part of getting the fans to roll over into kind of the next show, because of that feel of anything can happen at any time?
Well, you try to. It's a lot of times it's difficult. It's hard to try to have a surprise, because a lot of times the surprise is going to be a name guy, for example. Okay.
Sure.
Years ago, I think the first time we ever really did that big surprise was when we had Paulie Cover against Kevin Cross. Okay. And people are like, what the hell? Paulie Cover is going to wrestle Kevin Cross. This is going to be a murder, and the idea was, I was friendly with Lance Hoyt, and Lance Hoyt was big in Japan. He worked the shows that we did, the IWF back in the day in Phoenix and stuff. And we probably had used him once before in FSW. I think we used him. He was actually at a Survival of the Fittest. He ended up wrestling Graves and beat him in the first round. And I think he ended up wrestling Tyshawn after that. But we kept Lance Hoyt a secret. And again, a lot of these times when if we wanted to do a surprise, it's pretty impossible, because to offset cost, we usually have him do a signing at the mall with Scott. So if people, you don't have to be a brainiac to put 2 and 2 together. If Lance Hoyt's signing at the mall and we have a wrestling show that night, there's a good chance Lance Hoyt's probably showing up. Okay. We didn't have Lance Hoyt there, and we had the perfect setup for the beginning. So basically, at the Silverton, there was like this a covering, I guess you could say. It was, you know, made of whatever, but it was like to protect people from looking into the locker room. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And if you knocked it over, you know, wait a little bit, it was like a changing area, almost like a mini changing thing. It was straight across. So the idea was Paulie goes to the back through, because he's running away from Cross. And after about a minute, or, you know, 30 seconds or whatever, all of a sudden Cross comes crashing through this covering. And people are like, what the fuck? And, you know, Paulie Cover's looking like, you know, hey, look what I just did. And then right behind him, Lance Hoyt walks out. And unfortunately, I remember doing commentary, and I heard one person yell, holy shit, that's Lance Hoyt. Because again, he wasn't that well known at that point. You know,
right.
Big match. It was a big surprise. But doing that, and it also goes to the Young Bucks winning the tag belts at an FSW arena show, trying to do some things that spice up that house show kind of thing, because it becomes second nature if nobody's winning titles. You know, that's why we did the Nevada State Championship there. You know, we kind of built up the whole thing. So having a surprise, having EC3 as a surprise might have been was definitely an idea, but to offset the cost, we had to do the meet and greet. You know, we had to do the signing, you know, and it cost us far less money. So it was worth it, you know, in the long run. You know, John Moxley, I would have never made a surprise, because I would want people to buy tickets because they knew John Moxley was in the main event. But, you know, John Moxley was there until the show was about to start. So, you know, it was kind of hard to promote him. And we already had sold out, which was crazy. So since we'd already sold out, we didn't benefit financially. You know, we made a few extra bucks, obviously, on, say, YouTube and stuff, which we did. But we didn't make the money financially, but we made money the other way. We made more fans. We made people be aware of us. You know, we had 500,000 views on the Moxley appearance. And and we had a couple of them that are all the same, to where it was like, you know, it was the clip of him coming out. Then there was the clip of him with the promo. And there was a lot of viewership on that. So it made more people who weren't aware of FSW aware of it. Like, holy shit, John Moxley's wrestling in this place that, you know, it's a nice little arena, but it doesn't seem like it holds that many people. Like, if I announced Cross versus Moxley at Samstown, I'm pretty sure we would have sold that out. Right.
As we kind of start looking at wrapping up here, is there a particular thing that you're looking forward to on the 24th?
I'm looking forward to a lot of different things. You know, this was months of hard work to put together a show that almost every match has meaning and repercussions of what has happened in the past. And this is an opportunity to not only finish some stories, but some will also be pushed forward toward November 27th, when we have No Escape. That's a steel cage show. You know, what's going to come out of this that's going to lead to that, you know? So, you know, ironing out the things we got, you know, the surprise that we got, it's, you know, I don't want to give it away, but I believe it's happening. And, you know, I think it's a pretty big deal, you know, and, you know, watching Sam Adonis again, he's a guy that I'd like to see more regularly here, and through MK, there's definitely a good possibility of that, you know, and, you know, I want to see Hammerstone, Graves, and Gallo battling Toa, Juicy, and Adonis. Those are some big boys, you know, that is the main event of the night, you know, and obviously the faction, you know, this is the good opportunity, man. It's a great opportunity. Bay gets to have his boys who are like on the cusp of greatness, like Hero Lou and Shogun and Nino, those are guys that are very well respected, amongst the fans that, love to see. A lot of people love Shogun and Hero as a tag team. Those are things that, without having things set in stone, those are things that help you make decisions. You know what I mean? Like, I never thought of Shogun and Hero as a tag team. We did the Halloween Battle Royal thing, and they came out like the Acolytes, and they were great together. It was like, wow. And then when Kenny couldn't make the match and Hero was in there, they were legit. Like, if they were the tag team champions, they were legit. People would buy into that. So now you look at Hero and Shogun and say, wow, them and Juicy and Toko Uso, that'd be, some interesting stuff. And you still got Death Proof, and the R&B have been very, very quiet since the anniversary show. Who knows, what's going on with them. And then we got these younger tag teams, maybe they shock the world. Maybe somebody beats Death Proof, and then where do you go from there? So there's so much, to go on, what we have happening, Nevada State title match. I'm excited about that. Watching Eli Everfly is always a treat. You know what I mean? And now he's getting to work with Remy Quest, who I love, and Keita Murray, who I like a lot and never had the chance to use here in FSW. He worked SummerSlam weekend, a couple of the shows.
Right.
And, he's really, really good. I had met him at the Impact tryout a few years ago, and he was one of the few standouts. There's like 70 wrestlers out there at that show or at that tryout. And I could probably count on one hand, besides the FSW guys, because, not to brag, but the FSW guys, were the best talents there by far, as witnessed by them using the Hammerstones and the Bonus Boys, and at the time, the 1% and Damian Drake and things like that. But Keita Murray was one of the guys that I remember seeing, that I liked an awful lot. So, to finally get him out here, especially on a bigger show.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I have not seen him live, so I think that should be pretty awesome. Again, everyone listening, if you are in Vegas, get your tickets. Come on down to Diversion Amusements to see Survival of the Fittest this Friday, the 24th. Doors open at 6 p.m. Bell time is 7 p.m. But if you're out of town, you can't make it for whatever reason out to the arena, please remember that you can purchase the pay-per-view on Fight TV and, check out some of this action and the surprises and where things are headed next. Joe, any final words before we wrap up?
No, this is, we'd appreciate, as usual, our great fans to come out to this event. We worked hard for it. The guys are looking forward to returning to Diversion. The fans, other than the AC issues, really enjoyed the venue. Can't get over that 22-foot big screen. I'll tell you what, man, that is a true Titantron.
Yeah.
After that show, I saw so many of the wrestlers use that as their profile picture because, man, there was nothing more major league than that. So, you got to credit Mikey and the production guys who do some great jobs with the graphics that usually nobody kind of hears about and stuff like that. But, we're looking forward to it. Hopefully the hiccups that we had, I know we had some issues with the music and blah, 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 with stuff playing right. But hopefully, that'll all be handled and, double checking. But D'Lo is probably going to do commentary with Jake once again on this show. So, we're going major league all the way. We got great talent from start to bottom. This is a big show. This is one, if you're an FSW fan, I know it's easy to miss a Future Shock. It's easy to miss a High Octane here and there because we do so many, but we don't do that many of these. So, I implore you guys, come out, support, because the more you guys support, the more Diversion is saying, hey, we need these guys back. Not like, hey, the price is right. It's like, this is an event we want to have as often as possible here because the crowd's great. They spend money. They're loud. They're boisterous, and they just there to have a good time. So,
yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, very good way to put it. And again, anyone who's in town, please come out and check it out. And that is, that's the exciting thing. It's just hearing about what's going to be happening, and this just it's going to be a great jumping point for new stories and a great jumping point for stories wrapping up. And again, you're going to see talent all up and down the card, as Joe said, from the announcers all the way through the talent. And it's an exciting time to be a wrestling fan too. So this is your opportunity to see some of the guys that you might know, or get to know some of the guys that you don't know. And you'll be pleasantly surprised, and probably a new fan of different people if you've never checked FSW out before. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And please remember, the FSW network is $6.99 a month. There, it's going to give you almost like the whole back catalog of FSW. So that will also allow you to see guys like Kevin Cross and Chris Bay and their journey into getting to where they are now. All right, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.